Hey there, HorseCenter fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Matt, nothing better than a good opening day.
That's for sure. It's one of the favorite Horse Center shows for fans. It's the Christmas edition, and we're focusing on opening day at Santa Anita, which is the day after Christmas.
That's right, Matt. I was promised that you would be wearing a Christmas hat, so I'm a little disappointed, but we got the Malibu Showdown, we got the La Brea, San Antonio, and the American Oaks. Watch it all right now on HorseCenter. Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the excellent pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. It's the Ho 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 edition of Horse Center.
Yeah, that's right. Merry Christmas, everyone. Matt and I are taping this on Tuesday morning, which I guess is 3 days before Christmas, but it's also 4 days before a huge opening day card at Santa Anita. That's what we're going to focus, of course, on this week, Matt. 4 races in a row later in the card. They have other stakes on this opening day bonanza, but we're focusing on 4 consecutive big races 7 through 10, opening day at Santa Anita. Let's start with the last one first. It's the Grade 1 Malibu, Matt, 7 furlongs on the main track. And there are 2 horses in here, especially in this compact but excellent field. 2 horses that everybody's looking at. I'm talking about Charlton and Nashville. Charlton's been away for a long time now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Since the Arkansas Derby, they are 6 for 6, crossing the finish line in first in their careers. Of course, if we go back to talking about Charlatan, he's crossed the finish line 3 for 3. Won the Arkansas Derby last time we saw him, but then was subsequently disqualified for one of those several drug violations from Bob Baffert.
Yeah, Charlton, Nashville, neither have been really tested in any of their 3 races each, respectively. Charlton was quickly becoming one of the best 3-year-olds in the country, Matt. He did it out in California. Then, as you said, he took his show on the road to Arkansas. The Arkansas Derby, probably the weaker division of the 2 Arkansas Derby editions this year, but he absolutely won for fun, controlled the race on the front end. And Matt, the front end in this Malibu, I think is going to be a very interesting tale because Nashville literally has speed to burn out of the Steve Asmussen barn. Both of these sons of Speightstown, a champion sprinter himself way back when and now a top American sire. They both have a lot of speed. It'll be interesting to see what a fresh Charlton ridden by Mike Smith does with the overwhelming early speed of Nashville.
It is very interesting. Nashville is a rocket ship, in my opinion, and I find it's very interesting that Steve Asmussen is willing to ship Nashville across the country for this race. To me, that is a vote of confidence. But of course, anytime you do something like that, even as a 3-year-old at the end of the year, there has to be question marks. A long trip, different kind of track that Nashville has ever been on. But boy, that horse is fast. He's won his 3 races by close to a combined 25 lengths. Yes, Charlton won a sprint in his debut and is also fast. But, Brian, I don't know if he's that kind of fast.
Yeah, I always look for fresh horses to show even more speed than they generally would. But in Charlton's case, he's got a ton of speed anyway. But we're just talking about exceptional speed here from Nashville. Now, I think there are advantages for Charlton. First off, you kind of hinted at it there. Santa Anita certainly is Charlton's home track, while Nashville has run at Saratoga and Keeneland. So that might be an advantage for the fresher horse Charlton. Nashville was a little late to the party too, Matt. He's never run against horses of this ilk yet in his career, and the Malibu makes perfect sense for him to finally step up. Now in his 4th race, the last race was the Perryville, where of course he set a track record on Breeders' Cup Day at Keeneland, but he didn't beat all that much. Now he's got Charlton breathing down his neck. And I also think 7 furlongs is a tricky distance for both of them because Nashville will probably be pressured like he's never been before trying to carry his speed 7 furlongs, while Charlton coming back against really tough horses going 7 furlongs is no easy task after what, Matt, about over 7 months off. So could be a rider's race. Mike Smith, Ricardo Santana Jr. will ride Nashville. If they hook up early and they throw down a 43 and change, it could set up the race for one of the longer shots. And you have some really good options, Matt. You have Collusion Illusion, 3-time stakes winner sprinting. You also have Thousand Words, who a few races ago beat Honor AP in a stakes race at Del Mar. And then you have the son of Constitution, Independence Hall, who's been transferred to the barn of Mike McCarthy. And his return win at Del Mar was pretty darn good.
Yeah, you're talking about some very nice horses there. Go back to Collusion Illusion, who is breaking from the rail. He won 5 out of his 6 first races with impressive stakes performances in there. Threw in a clunker for sure in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, but is a horse that prefers to race from off the pace. You mentioned Independence Hall, that was transferred to the barn of Michael McCarthy out west, a horse that we remember early on the Derby Trail at Aqueduct, who was to say high-strung at that time is a vast understatement, but he sure seemed to have settled down nicely in that allowance race, where he came back and stalked and seemed to be really under control and got a really nice win in his first start for Michael McCarthy. There's always been quality there with that horse, and maybe maturity and the trainer change is just what he needed. Again, another one who could get a pace set up in here, particularly going that 7 furlongs.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. I think you talked me into it. Charlton and Nashville will be 2 heavy favorites. I listed Charlton as a lukewarm favorite, but I'm not sure. It easily could be Nashville as the favorite on Saturday. But what I am sure of is these 2 will be the 2 heavily bet horses in here, and I think you're going to get good odds on the other 3. Collusion Illusion is a very nice sprinter. As you said, he ran 12th in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last time, which wasn't good as he went out to Keeneland. But I would expect a better performance in here, and it really kind of sets up for every horse in the race but the other 2 favorites. The other 3 can all sit off the lead. Thousand Words is a horse of quality, and horses of quality, I think, can come down to 7 furlongs against sprinters this good if their race is set up well. So Thousand Words I wouldn't throw out. But I think you talked me into it, Independence Hall, because I remember what a talented 2-year-old he was. Things didn't go well early this year down there in Tampa Bay and in Florida for him, but I think he's a more talented horse than he showed in races like the Florida Derby. I think with so much speed at 7 furlongs with a race under him, Mike McCarthy is a former Pletcher assistant, doing really good things out in there in California. So I'm gonna pick an upset in here. I'm gonna pick Independence Hall to shock the world, because everybody thinks this is Charlton or Nashville's race to win.
Well, Brian, going into the show, thinking about the race, I said to myself, who do I think that Brian Zipsy is going to pick? And Independence Hall was the horse that I thought that you might lean on. You have to remember, Brian, he had a big 12-length victory early on in his career, flashed so much talent in there. Out of the two speedballs, I think that I prefer Nashville. We've seen Steve Asmussen do, amazing things with sprinters like this. If we think back to the great Matoli, could Nashville be another Matoli? I don't know, maybe. But out of the closers, I would certainly lean to Independence Hall, and out of the front runners, I would lean to Nashville.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure. I think I lean to Charlton a little bit over Nashville, but I think by picking Independence Hall, what I'm saying is, a big part of it is the odds, certainly, because I think Charlton and Nashville will both be below 2-1. Independence Hall will be more like 8-1. So that's a big part of it. But what I'm really saying is I think both Charlton and Nashville are really, really good. And the fact that they're both so good means that neither one will have an easy time of it for the first 6 furlongs, and that just might set up an upset. But any way you slice it, this Malibu is a race that we all want to watch, and a true grade one, even with the short field, that we're very much looking forward to, as we are the other 3 stakes we're going to talk about, Matt. Big fields. Let's start with the La Brea, another grade one at 7 furlongs. This is the female version. It doesn't come with the perhaps star-studded glamour of the Malibu, but in Finite, I think you have a really, really interesting filly, also from the Steve Asmussen barn like Nashville. His daughter Munnings looked like one of the Kentucky Oaks favorites early this year. She fell off of that trail, certainly, but I've been very impressed with her 2 races coming back, one at Keeneland and one at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, you have to be impressed. You have to be impressed with her record early on in her career when she put together a big winning streak. And as you said, Brian, led her to being what looked like one of the favorites for the Kentucky Oaks. And then again, the races back recently, that win at Churchill Downs in the Chalukey was very impressive, going a mile. And you know, I like the cutback from a mile to 7 furlongs. I'm not one of those crazy cutback guys who, like, anytime he sees a horse cutting back in distance, says, "Oh, that's my horse." I like cutbacks when, in their past performances, they already have a good record sprinting, and we can certainly say that about Finite.
Yeah, and if you only have to go back 2 races in a return race to see a 7 furlong performance that I thought was excellent, as she came up the rail and almost beat Venetian Harbor, another one of the best sprinting 3-year-old fillies in the country, super fast filly, Venetian Harbor. So Finite almost got her at 7 furlongs at Keeneland. The Chalukey, as you say, was excellent, going a mile. I think she might have found a home in this kind of 7 furlong, 1 mile distance where she can make a run from off the pace a little bit. She may prefer that to, say, 9 furlongs or something like next year's Breeders' Cup Distaff. We'll see. But for now, I think she stands over this field just a little bit on class. Having said that, there are certainly some other very interesting options in here. You have the first 2 fillies coming out of that Keeneland stake last time. Merneath, trained by Bob Baffert, actually won the race. Motivated Seller, though, might have even more potential from the barn of Chad Brown.
Yeah, they both ran a good race on that day. And as we remember, that was one of the races on the Breeders' Cup undercards. On those days when the track was fast, favoring front runners, the 2 of them came from off the pace kind of together and battled it down the stretch. So, you know, that's noteworthy for those 2. I think we also need to make mention of Secret Keeper, who has a good record and is California based, was second in the Torrey Pines and is cutting back, but again, has good sprints in there. And Secret Keeper in her last race just had a horrible break, went down to her knees out of the gate, and for a horse that prefers to be up pressing the pace, kind of lost all chance in there.
Yeah, good call on mentioning her. I also want to mention Stellar Sound, who I think has a lot of talent too. She was actually entered in a stakes race against older males last time. She got scratched out of that one. But 2 races back, she had an overpowering allowance win out in California. And then last time she faded a little bit against older fillies, going a mile 16th, but I kind of like the cutback for her. Having said that, with all these interesting horses in here, I'm on Finite. I think Finite probably will be the favorite, but I don't think she's a heavy favorite. I expect Motivated Seller for one, and the Baffert Merneath to get that quite a bit. So I think Finite will be a pretty lukewarm favorite in here, Matt. I don't know if you agree with me, but I like Finite. I think she's the class of the race, and first trip out to California, but she's shipped well in the past. I'm on Finite in the La Brea.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you about her being a lukewarm favorite. Certainly, Baffert's got a pair in there, and they kind of have similar records in that they've won their last 2 races, and they're both daughters of American Pharaoh. And Baffert's always take some action, as do Chad's. But I think Finite's going to be a pretty heavy favorite. Awful lot of ones in her past performances, Brian. This is a race where I'm gonna look for an upset. I'm gonna see what kind of price Secret Keeper is coming with, and she's going to be my pick.
Nice. Yeah. I really think Motivated Seller's going to get bet a lot, even though she was narrowly beaten by Mernith a lot. So that's one of the reasons I think Finite won't be below 2-1. Motivated Seller, I think, will be a big well bet in here. And then you got the Bafferts, and then you got other horses like we mentioned, Stellar Sound and Secret Keeper. So, all right, I'm on Finite. Matt's going with a long shot. Let's move to the older males, Matt. It's the only non-grade one we're going to talk about today, but I'm very interested in San Antonio for a couple of reasons. Of course, reason number one is the return of another one of those Bob Bafferts, Mucho Gusto. We talked a little bit about him when we were talking about the Pegasus a few shows ago. Mucho Gusto has really been working out steadily now for a few months, but he's been away for a long time. When last seen, he led in the stretch of that rich Saudi Cup before fading just a little bit late. But that race and, of course, the Pegasus earlier in the year were very big performances for the son of Mucho Macho Man. Now we get to see Mucho Gusto getting ready again to go overseas, international big races over there again this year. But it's a return race. But Mucho Gusto early this year looked like he might be one of the best older horses in the country.
Yeah, Brian, and watching the replay of the Pegasus in preparation for the show, which I hadn't seen in quite a while, I personally had forgotten how impressive Mucho Gusto was in that victory, and then the whole shipping over to the Middle East, the difficult things, and he's had some time off, and it looks like Baffert's got Mucho Gusto cranked up and getting him prepared to open up the bank vault with starts in the Pegasus, and then maybe again another trip out to the rich Saudi Cup. Mucho Gusto certainly appears to be the horse to beat. That's going to be very difficult to handle if he comes back in the form that he showed last year, heading into the Pegasus and in the Pegasus.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any doubt he'll be headed back to the Middle East because that's what they're really pointing to. He's owned by Middle Easterners, of course. So I think Mucho Gusto, this is strictly a return race, strictly a prep, but still he's looked so good in the mornings. And the way he was developing, I remember how Mucho Macho Man just got better and better with age. His sire, I think Mucho Gusto is, you're right, certainly the one to beat. He'll be a heavy favorite in here. There are others. And the first one I want to talk about is a horse maybe a lot of people don't know yet, but you're looking at the form of Idol, son of Curlin for Richard Baltus, and he ran 3 of the best 3-year-old races. He didn't win the first one, so maybe there's a little bit of hyperbole there, but he was as impressive as any horse at Churchill Downs in the fall. This lightly raced son of Curlin looked better each and every time. Big step up now in class, but I think Idol's for real, and I had him penciled in before I knew he was going into San Antonio to end the year. I had him penciled in as a real force on the handicap division next year. Now he shows up in the San Antonio against a horse like Mucho Gusto.
Yeah, Brian, I think we're thinking along the same lines in here. Idol has raced at Churchill Downs and as you said, didn't win his first, but impressive maiden special weight victory, impressive allowance victory at Churchill Downs for Richard Baltus, interestingly, who we know from, typically being a California-based trainer, now heads back west with Idol, bringing along Gabe Sayas, who rode the horse in Kentucky for this race. I like what I've seen from Idol. I like Idol in here because the rest of the field, in my opinion, is a lot of those. It's those same old names again, Brian. Extra Hope, Sharp Samurai, Combat, and Midcourt. Who have all run some very good races. Three of them that I just mentioned finished first, second, and third in the Native Diver recently in California. So they have decent form. Sharp Samurai was third in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, but for me in this San Antonio, Mucho Gusto is going to be tough to beat. But my number 2 horse in that race also is Idol.
Okay, yeah, and that's why I'm so excited about the San Antonio, to see the return of Mucho Gusto, who has a chance to be the best older horse in the country and has a chance to win huge races overseas. But I'm also very excited to see what Idol can do in his stakes debut, because I think obviously he's got a lot of potential. Yeah, I'm with you on Extra Hope, certainly Combatant. Midcourt runs some good races, and a mile 16th probably is a distance that he can be effective. But I'm a little bit tired of those California older horses as well. I will say Sharp Samurai is a little bit more interesting than any of the ones coming out of the Native Diver, simply because he's been a turf horse most of his career. He won a lot of races early on in his career, a lot of stakes races early on in his career, but he just hasn't been getting to the winner's circle lately. But if you look at his 2 dirt races recently, they're both really good, including that third in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last time. So Sharp Samurai is a horse probably going to run second or third again, but he's a very nice horse who almost always gives his top effort, and he looks every bit the dirt horse that is the turf horse. So he adds a little intrigue, but I'm with you. Mucho Gusto is certainly the horse to beat, and Idol is the most interesting of the others in this San Antonio, Matt. All right, you ready for another grade 1?
We got one more.
One more. It's a mile and a quarter. And this one's on the grass, the downhill course there at Santa Anita, Matt. And I think we have to start with the best 2-year-old turf filly in the country. Last year, Sharon won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Fillies. It's been a little bit of a strange year looking at her record. She went to Ascot. The one thing that's striking about Sharon, as good as she's been in her 5 wins in 8 starts, big races literally all over the world, Matt, is she's never been farther than a mile and a 16th. And recently she's been running at a mile. Now she stretches out to 10 furlongs against a pretty solid field here in the Grade 1 American Oaks.
Yeah, Brian, it's an interesting race. And I guess, if you're looking to play against Sharon, who's probably going to be a big favorite, I think you gave a good reason to do that. Graham Motion, sending her out to California for this last Grade 1. Yeah, you said it's been a little bit of a strange year. Went to Ascot and finished second in one of the important big Grade 1s out there. So certainly a feather in the cap of Sharon. Only been off the board once in her career. She's already shipped out to California. She has a win in her one start at Santa Anita. I feel like she's, yes, stretching out in distance, but has a class edge over this field.
Yeah, she certainly does. And even if you look at her last race, which she finished 4th, it was a very good 4th. Those were good older females. And, it was a race where I wondered how well she would do. And I wasn't discouraged at all by the 4th place finish. It was literally 3/4 of a length against the older females there. Maybe she could have done a little better, but Sharon is all class. And I'm just interested to see. I'm not super excited about betting this race. But on the other hand, I could see betting Chad Brown fillies a lot. Chad Brown has 2 in here, and they're both kind of up-and-coming turf fillies. So maybe Sharon won't be low odds, but I do want to see how she stretches out for trainer Graham Motion. I think Graham Motion is one of the better trainers to stretch out a horse to a mile and a quarter. He knows what he's doing to get a horse ready for a distance like this. And nothing she's ever done, I'm kind of surprised she's never been more than a mile 16th, because nothing she's ever shown on the track would make you think, oh, she doesn't want to go more of a distance. She got a good prep with that matriarch against older mares. Now she's back against three affiliates. I think she's the one to beat. But let's just talk about both of those Chad Brown fillies a little bit. Duopoly is the one I like better, the daughter of Animal Kingdom, coming off a stakes win at Aqueduct. Maybe she hasn't been just sensational in her races. She's a little bit more experienced of the two. But I like the way she's progressing, and I think 1.25 miles probably will be a good distance for Duopoly. But I could see a lot of people jumping on Capital Structure as well, who's only had 3 starts, but looking like another good Chad Brown turf horse.
Yeah, and Duopoly, has speed, likes to run on the front end. Was last seen doing just that, winning a stake at Aqueduct. So in a race that it doesn't particularly have a lot of horses who are interested in the front end, it could be a good situation for that particular Chad Brown.
Yeah, Duopoly. So you like Duopoly a little bit better than Capital Structure as well? Okay.
Yeah,
We're on the same page there. But I think the Chad Browns will get bet, as they always do, and they're always dangerous. I mean, Chad Brown's record in shipping out to California for these turf stakes is just unreal. So certainly 2 fillies that are dangerous to sharing as the favorite in here. I do want to mention Red Lark because she's been a decent filly, turf filly, an experienced turf filly out in California, but her last 2 races, winning the Del Mar Oaks, and then when she shipped to Keeneland even for the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup, I thought she ran very well. Doesn't have much speed, as you mentioned. I don't know if that's going to suit her well in this 1.25 mile race, but it really seems like Red Lark has come to hand, and her last 2 races certainly have to mention her as a threat in here as well. Matt, who's your top pick in the American Oaks?
I'm going to go with Sharing. I just think that she's got too much class for this field, and as you mentioned, it may just have been situational, and things didn't work out schedule wise because Sharing has never gotten this longer distance.
That's right. Yeah, I think her schedule is a little bit off of what a normal year would have been, and like I said, I think Grant Motion will have his horse ready for the 10 furlong test and back against 3-year-olds. She's my top pick too. I'm pretty sure she'll be favored over the Brown fillies, but Sharon is an easy horse to root for. I did pick her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf when she had a little bit of odds last fall, and I've been a fan ever since. So I can't jump off her now, even as the favorite. Although of the betting races, I'm kind of more interested in the 7 furlong grade ones. That's the Malibu. I'm going to be trying that Sonic Constitution Independence Hall to pull off a big upset. And I like Finite in the La Brea map, but just a wonderful card of racing. Mathis Brothers Mile earlier in the card, it looks pretty good. There's the Lady Shamrock to end the day. So it's just a whopper of an opening day at Santa Anita on Saturday.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think, I like I'm interested in the San Antonio and trifecta that includes Mucho Gusto, Idol, and Sharp Samurai.
There you go. And both of these races, the Malibu and the San Antonio, I think will have a big impact as we move into next year. A lot of these horses are going to have big years next year, and it could come as soon as the Pegasus World Cup in about a month. So a lot to watch at Santa Anita on Saturday. Well, that's our preview of opening day at Santa Anita, the day after Christmas. Santa Claus. Matt, can I get a parting shot from you, my friend?
Yeah, Santa Claus, Santa Anita. I mean, that's where ho ho ho. That's where he got his name, right? Because he likes to go to Santa Anita.
He loved the Great Race Place.
Again, happy holidays to all the HorseCenter fans. Brian and I will be back next week. And of course, I want to wish our producer, Brett Workman, and his family happy holidays. And as always, thank Brett for putting together the show.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to Brett and his beautiful family. Merry Christmas to all of you watchers out there. Matt and I sure do appreciate you tuning into HorseCenter every week. If you haven't yet subscribed, I know most of you have, but if you haven't yet, please do hit that little red Christmas button to subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation. I want to thank our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. Matt, I think we'll be jumping right back on the Derby trail next week with some stakes. I know you're already looking at next week's Jerome. We'll see you right here next week on HorseCenter.